Hello, my name is Felipe Arevalo. I work with Wasman Music Group, which is a London-based music company, and we focus on spotting and developing music of the highest quality for media, as well as spotting the best talent that's around, people that are interested in creating music for media. I started working with Wasman Music Group back in 2015, and along with them, we founded the Latin American record labels that are also based in London but operate all over the world wherever Latin American musicians are. One of them is Somos, which was started in 2015 and released in 2016. We released it here in London, but also it coincided with the beginning of Wasman Music Group's venture in the US. So we launched Somos officially in the Gibson Center back in 2016, sometime in May. And very recently, at the beginning of this year, we launched our first Latin American artist-focused record label called Somos Más. And thankfully, we have been working with artists that have been, and the albums that we have signed to that label are also albums that have been nominated for Latin Grammys. And along this year, we have had, I believe, 2 number ones in Radio Nacional de Colombia for about 2 or 3 weeks each, and we got another number 2 or number 3 there with Diana Burco, and also with La Ciencia de Juancho Valencia, that is currently still number 1 in a couple of tropical music and salsa radio stations, which is something quite cool to work with as well. We recorded those albums in Cuba last year. And then, so we have Somos and Somos Más. And I have also worked together with Wasman Music in the creation of a couple of other labels, so like giving support for that, as well as co-production with 0 Degrees, which is a label focused in Canadian artists and Canadian content. It's mainly pop, rock, mainstream, acoustic stuff. And also very recently, at the beginning of this year, we launched the Asia Record Collective, which is very similar to what we're doing with Somos, which is finding talent from all over Asia and developing content with media. So with all together, with all of that experience that I have with Wasman Music Group, I have had the amazing blessing and opportunity to record things all over the world, to be in spaces like Abbey Road Studios for orchestral recordings, Mono Valley in Wales, Alvernia Studios, which are surreal in Poland, Estudios Egrem in Cuba last year, and we have been a couple of times in Colombia as well. And in terms of productions that are happening everywhere, there's things in Argentina, in Rosario, in Buenos Aires, in Brazil, in Rio and Sao Paulo, Mexico, Canada, Japan, LA, New York, India, Iran, and I'm really hoping that the list keeps expanding because this world is filled with amazing music. So let's get down to it. My area of expertise, even though it's mainly music production and the ins and outs of dealing with a record label management, with things such as A&R and the developing of a relationship with writers, it's deeply involved as well in topics like music for media, obviously, because that's what the labels are developing the content for, syncing, synchronization, licensing, and royalties. So in the 30-something minutes that we will have ahead, I'm going to try and do a 3-part introduction as quickly as I can to show you the opportunities that are out there, mainly in terms of royalties. So at the beginning, I'm going to start explaining in simple terms, and I'll do a little bit of a recap of what royalties are and how they work within the UK context. Number 2, introduce you to different means of making an income and what it takes to get a recording properly making an income from the moment you finish your master, or even during the creation of your master, until the time that it is being released, and you have to then monetize. And number 3, I'm gonna try and put together a few inspirational and functional tips in order for you to get your music to the right channels and the right people that are gonna support you if you think is necessary for the maximum potential that you can make for an income for your music. Hopefully by the end of this video you will be able to have an understanding of the intrinsic value of musical ideas. You will understand how to maximize the potential of that value, and also how to think and tailor musical ideas in order to be able to find the right audiences and the right partners and the right channels to release them. Because of the brief period of time that we have in our hands, I will not be able to delve into deep conversations about each topic, which I know a lot of you are actually thinking of, but unfortunately, because there is not a Q&A, or I don't understand if there will or not be a Q&A after these sessions, I will be open for you to get in touch. And if you want to get in touch, I'm always happy to help. I will put in here a link to my LinkedIn profile, as well as something a little bit less boring like my Instagram, which is something somewhere around here as well in this box. And in Instagram you will see that I will be posting or reposting stories of recordings that are happening. Either way, I use both of them. I think you're gonna be less bored if you do the Instagram, but if you don't have LinkedIn, and if not, I am sure that if you don't use any of those two, which you should as an artist, just I'm hoping that my email will be here or it will be shared. I'm not sure, but let's crack on because time is of essence. So let's begin. Number one, what are royalties? Where to begin? Royalties were created to financially acknowledge and reward creators of music. If my history is correct, and if my notes are correct, it all began when publishers, who back then were only print shops and people that were dealing with printed music, saw an opportunity to commercialize the musical pieces that were very popular. And because that meant that the creator of the music might have actually be getting himself out of a job, they made sure that there was a percentage to offset for that in the direct sale of each of the copies. That was, and you will see why this is important, mechanically generated. A copy was put, it was mechanically copied, and then it was sold. And a copy of that, a percentage of that mechanical copy was considered a royalty. And that was given to the composer, and obviously was negotiated in between the person that knew the distribution of the music stores, that knew also the copy shop, and who knew the composer, and that would be a negotiation. So at the same time, venues that were hiring musicians that were not very high profile, but that were playing essentially music from more famous repertoire, started hiring these musicians because it was cheaper. And whomever was back then representing the music creators, which is by the time that I think that collection societies start, then they decided, and it was agreed, that if the venues were going to start doing this, they would have to pay also for a fee of the performance to compensate the creator of the music for the fact that it was thanks to their music, both the venue and the performer, it was thanks to the music created or written by someone else that they were able to do a business. The ins and outs of this story are extremely complex, and I wouldn't quote myself on the specificity of, or the with extreme accuracy on all of this, but it was thanks to that profitability, the profitability of intellectual property, that several experts from different fields got involved and started what is now known as a music publishing business, and what's like record labels, book publishers selling to performers, royalty collection societies that were representing these rights in public venues, in private venues, to make sure that every time that a work that was composed by a writer that was not there. And even if it was there, there was a recognition that was going towards that intellectual property. And all of this stemmed out from a composer that was granting the rights to a publisher, to a publishing company, to copy the works. So the rights to copy, or as we know them today, copyrights. Now, with the formal inclusion of intellectual property within and copyrights in the arts, that absolutely propelled the careers of artists who previously could only live from patronage or from performances, and it absolutely encouraged composers, musicians from all backgrounds to create content that would be widely performed. And that chunk in my notes is in bold because it's really important. It encouraged composers and musicians from all backgrounds to create content that would be widely performed. There's an element of profitability through making the music friendly for audiences. So if we fast forward through endless technological developments, the wax cylinder, the recording technologies, the publishing business has absolutely branched out so much and in so many ways that the industry went from spearheading technological developments like vinyl, CD pressing, the creation of different means and electromagnetic ways to capture music so that it could be traded for audiences, and made sure that all along this mechanical right and the mechanical royalty and the performance royalty was kept. And we went from there to all of a sudden, with the coming of the internet and the immediate access to and the digitalization of the content, to an industry that unfortunately and sadly never stops, never catches up. It's always playing catch up. So for the latest 2 decades, it has failed to do many things, but it has achieved another some. But the critical two for me, I believe, are to ensure that whenever music is consumed by masses or by any audiences, is accounted for and paid to the creators, and number two, to create added value that actually justifies people not to consume music for free or for a cheaper cost. On top of that, add that the cost of the recordings have considerably gone down, and that has democratized the creation of music. You no longer need a budget of millions of pounds in order to put an album together. You can genuinely have a setup like the one I have behind me and do fantastic content. However, that comes with a downside. It comes with plenty of downsides. It's really nice that anyone can record music, but that also means that the stream of music that goes out to the market is huge, and it drones potential talent from being heard because it needs to overperform too early in its career. That's one of the downsides. And the other one is that obviously whenever there is a new platform, whenever there is a channel that is open for people to come on board and fill that channel with music, big recorded companies that have experience in negotiating these deals and have the legal power to come and negotiate, as well as bigger catalogs of over 1,000, 50,000, 100,000 tracks, they can come and negotiate and say, like, look, we're gonna withhold our rights from you to use our music until we kind of reach a deal, and everyone within that catalog is going to benefit. But if the big majority of people are just flooding this platform with music, they are unbalancing the power from the people that could genuinely defend the legal rights of music, so that it's a little bit more profitable in exchange of getting an immediate exposure from being the first ones in this platform. And some examples could be YouTube, Spotify. Obviously, plenty of people nowadays complain that Spotify has been underpaying, but that's the model that they always offered. We were having a conversation about this the other day. There is a petition about Spotify should pay at least 1 cent. Well, Spotify cannot create money from nowhere where it doesn't, you as a musician, and by putting your music in aggregators, you have agreed that that is something that you want. So your bargaining power is very small, and you just have to tick the box, get your music out there so that you cannot miss on the opportunity to have your things there. But obviously before that, music companies were getting their hands in there to make sure that any business that was going to profit from music would hold their horses until it was actually possible to see that coming on board was profitable for the artist and for the labels. Nowadays, ignoring, I'm leaving aside the ethical and moral values and the judgment of some of these business models from different record labels. That's not the point. We're just assuming that they're there to actually genuinely defend the profitability of music, so that we cannot make a living out of it and follow a career in music. So skipping all of that, coming to close down on what royalties are. To boil it down to the essential, there are two kinds of royalties. We have performance royalties and we have mechanical royalties, and both still actually bear the name of where they come from. Mechanical royalties are from the license or a mechanical granted copy of a product, which nowadays has some digital forms as well. And performance is every time that your track is played live or in a recorded form, and it pays royalties depending as well on the performance of that track within a set of different factors, like the audience, the time that it was played. Restaurants, clubs, music venues, radio stations, some other companies that run ads recognize some things as performance royalties, but in reality, some of those performance royalties cross over to the mechanical royalties side of things. Mechanical royalties take the form of physical sales, synchronization, licensing fees. Apparently, in loads of territories, they recognize that all your streaming income is mechanicals, but I have heard of some, every territory, every country is different, and I have heard of some others that recognize that as being performance and pay directly to societies like PRS. Your mechanicals in the UK, if you are a member of MCPS, are claimed by MCPS, but if you are not a direct member of MCPS, you can get your mechanicals represented by a different company, a record label, a publisher, or there are some other platforms that offer that service. I would not recommend to claim mechanicals on your own, mainly because you would have to travel the world licensing and selling your music one by one before it actually gets used. So joining a mechanical royalties collection society, a service, a label, a publisher is highly advised. Obviously, there are other royalties that derive from the recorded product that don't directly involve the creation of the music, but they benefit the performers and arrangers, but and they live within the world of neighboring rights, and they kind of branch out into some other different rights, and they also changed and are recognized differently depending in each territory. In Colombia, record labels and producers and performers have a society. In the UK, just performers have a society. Mechanicals are claimed by the different organizations, but in the UK, the performance royalty collection society and the ones that are representing the rights of music performers, session musicians, is PPL. But I'm not going to go there because we're here to talk about the creation of the music itself. So there's definitely an honorable mention in there for PPL, but we're going to continue with the part 2, which is how we're going to get our music earning some royalties. So how are we going to make royalties? How are we going to maximize that? There are 3 stages that I have broken down. They all have tiny little mini steps in between, but to generalize and for you to have them in mind is registrations, distribution, tracking and claiming. So let's go to number 1. First things first, registration of everything. Please become, if you write music, become a part of a collection society. In the UK is the PRS. Become their friend, become their most intense auditor, keep a friendly professional relationship with them. They are a great organization. There is at least one collection society in every country around the world, and the PRS is exceptional. They are extremely proactive, they are accountable, they are approachable, and they are constantly on the case with the developments of technology, and they have been having conversations with YouTube and the streaming platforms to make sure that they're always protecting and claiming your royalties. So your first mission, if you haven't done it yet, is if you write music and you want royalties, the first thing that you need to do is go to PRS and register for a membership. And secondly, in terms of registration, if you already are a member of PRS, well done, is the registration of the music. And there are 2 ways to do this. And actually, for all of the points that I'm going to give ahead, there are endless ways and combinations in which you can do this either independently or with different partners and platforms for all of the rights. There is no one right or wrong way. It absolutely depends on how much you want to learn of the ins and outs of the business. It depends on how much resources of time and money you're also willing to put, and if you want support from a third party, how much external involvement you are willing to accept, keeping in mind that this will necessarily mean that there will be a fee or a commission that's going to be taken, but that task is going to be performed and supported by professionals. So again, registrations. If you're going to do it independently, make sure that you have agreed, and I strongly suggest you do this in written form, how you will recognize the work of the people involved. Look for a standard form online. They start from like £5 or £7, and if you want them drafted, then you pay a little bit more. There are also templates in the Musicians Union that are for session musicians, and if you are splitting with co-writers, please make sure that you get your numbers, the IPI numbers and the CA numbers correct, because when the volume of royalties is collected in lists, no one is going to come and listen to your music. No one is going to come and make sure that the lyric is the same or that the length of the MP3 is exactly the same one. They will see a list that is pretty much an Excel list with the name of a writer, the name of a song, and possibly the CAE or the IPI numbers, which are your numbers within PRS. CAE are within PRS, IPI are the ones that every collection society has around the world. Both of them work. But do make sure that you request that from the people that you're co-writing from, because if someone sees a list and you gave only your first name and your last name, and you have more than one name, or you have more names to that, or you have a pseudonym and you haven't registered, those royalties are gonna be unclaimed. So do the work. And also, if you're writing with someone, make sure that when you are writing with them, you provide, even put in your business cards or write it down. This is my full PRS name. This is my IPI or CA number. If you have a pseudonym, and if you don't want to go by your full name, you need to request it directly from PRS or your collection society, and that pseudonym will have a different IPI or CA number. And it's very important, because sometimes people don't want to go by their full name and they just give you a reduced version of it, and when you go to check if those royalties would be getting to this person, or when you're trying to register it, it doesn't check. So make sure that you are extremely tidy with that, because that means that you could potentially be earning royalties, but you're not receiving them because they don't know what the address of those royalties, they don't know where to send them, even though you could be generating them. As a general rule, anyone that comes in close contact with the creative process of the music has an inherent right to it. So make sure that along the process you are very clear, communicative, and you can either negotiate or pre-clear or get a release form from everyone involved. I advise that in the most informal of cases, you use templates from websites, because it's just easier to negotiate while the music is being created. It's like, oh yeah, sure, why not? But once the music has been released, it's a little bit trickier to manage. If £1 comes in and someone wants a little bit of that pound that you haven't negotiated, that's going to make things extremely complicated. So it's tighter to approach it in the creation stages. It is safer to have to negotiate it before anything is finished, and it's definitely healthier for your relationships that you are transparent about how you want to compensate everyone for their work in the track, and to avoid misunderstandings and legally ambiguous scenarios. When you have sorted all of these things during the recordings and you are ready and you have your masters and everything is in your hands, you can go to the PRS website if you're independent and register your works. And once you go in there and you have the information that I have mentioned previously, you will see how super easy it will be. Track name, composer, full name, CA numbers, these are percentages. See you later. Let me know when I have my royalties. If you do work with a label or a publisher, they should be on the case with all of the legal procedures and the registrations. They will very likely be present in some of the recording sessions, or when you are signing them, they will guide you through the process of this, which is something that I am used to doing. But regardless of the company that you're working with, always, absolutely always, be proactive and inquisitive of the process. Help us do a good job for you. So when it comes to distribution, which is the second step of our process, there is one secret that is huge, and it might be one of those that you're like, yeah, that's obvious, but when you structure it is so helpful, which is understand what is the audience, what is your target market, who are you aiming for? Do they predominantly listen to music in streaming platforms? Do they buy vinyl? Do they listen to podcasts? Do they read newspapers? How do they interact with their artists and how do they discover music? Do they use TikTok? Do they use Instagram? Do they use Facebook? Do they only do radio discoveries in the streaming platforms? This is extremely important because it will help you or any partner that comes on board, like a label, an aggregator, PR, marketing or publishing companies, to devise an accurate plan that aims at the channels where your potential audiences lie and how you can engage them. You might have witnessed the odd advertisement where you are offered investment platforms and baby diapers and Spanish courses. And in the case of the last two, I've got absolutely nothing, like I'm not even gonna glance at that, so don't be that. It is extremely unlikely that you're going to succeed if you are being very broad. So narrow down, boil it down to what is my specific target. And this is because getting within the attention bubble of your audience will cost you money. So if you are extremely broad, you're going to pay a lot and you're going to have a very low engagement. So make sure that you do know your audience and that when you get in there, your engagement rates are very high. Having identified where your audience lies and what their priorities are and how they engage the best, make sure that you look for a distribution partner or a platform that suits those needs and gives you the biggest benefit on the spaces where you need to be the strongest. If, for example, an aggregator that you are talking to, that you're checking, offers you 50 different streaming platforms in Europe, but you know that your audience is underground K-pop in Asia, maybe you want to keep an eye out for another service, another aggregator that has stronger ties to streaming platforms in that specific region. If you know that your audience likes vinyl in a specific territory, make sure that you approach locally or that whomever you're working with knows that that is the case, so that you can strengthen those relationships and maximize the income and maximize the engagement and the content that you create for fans that are out there. Make sure that you know what is important where, and strengthen and build those relationships with local distributors. In the case of vinyl, this is very, very, very key. But if not, just make sure that if you need to be in South America, you need to be aware that there are streaming platforms that are, for example, Movistar and Claro Music and other smaller ones that if you focus here in the UK or in Europe, they are going to be left out. So make sure that you understand who is the audience, and make sure that you also find the right partners and the right platforms to upload your music to, because if you have this clear, it's more likely that a streaming platform that has connections to Latin America will have an appointee or a person that is in charge of the relationships with Claro Music and Movistar Music that will get your music playlisted there. And the same applies for every single territory. I'm just saying because mine has to do with Latin America and I've had this personally. I don't think that there will be a single music company that presented with good data by the artist, or if they have some specific knowledge about the artist, I don't think it would be dismissed or disregarded. So it never harms. Also, if you're creating music and if you're creating social media content, it's extremely helpful. So this step above, knowing your audience, is everything. Big for the streaming world, and I'm guessing that this is big for everyone because we are all absolutely focused in streaming at the moment. Research how pitching for playlists work, and this is key because a lot of people don't do it. Many people don't know how to how it works, what are the timelines, what are the things that I have to submit. And even though you apply, if you don't know how to do it properly, it's never gonna go past the filter of a high quality application. So make sure that you do that in the platforms that are relevant for you. As I said earlier, search where your key audience is and make sure that you have the most beautiful relationship with that streaming platform. Also, keep up with your artist profile page. Every single platform has a different one. Apple has got Apple Music Profile, Spotify has Spotify for Artists, Deezer has the labels and artist page, and with Tidal I think they take requests directly from your aggregator. But this is important because if people are curious about you and they want to engage and they want to follow you and they want to know more about you, if they click in and it's a blank page with no photography, with no information, it's an absolute loss. So if you keep track of that, you can even upload your concert information. I think in Spotify you can even put a tiny little note from your latest social media post, or just a note to audiences saying, I'm really happy about this track, you should listen to it. And that's amazing because that is engagement, proper, almost one-to-one engagement with your current audiences and with new ones that start to develop from that content being there. If you have a particular deal with a publisher, a label, a management company that covers this, the playlisting and the releasing plan will be supported by them, and they will most definitely give you the list of the content that they need. Quite often it will be a blurb or a press release of the track with bio, with some highlights that you have of your career as an artist, some photos, 3 or 4 that are not the artwork, that could be used either for press releases or for being used as the main artwork for a playlist. To get on the radio, I'm not that much of an expert, but something similar comes into place. You either have a personal contact or you hire a plugger, or you can also apply through services like BBC Introducing. They actually have a very straightforward system where you put what style of music they have and it helps you filter exactly where you should be. And with record label companies that are interested in commercial music, because they are so heavily invested in making your records profitable, it's very likely that they already have or own a relationship or an account with people that have these direct contacts within music industry. So you can benefit and piggyback from those very strong relationships that they have been developing. And another way of distribution could be what I do with Was One Music Group, which is music for media. So when it comes to profitability of recorded products, the music business tends to be extremely skewed. That means that one player that gets to the top will very likely will reap the benefits and will take the profits out of everyone else in that pool of options. Think of it as winning a lottery ticket, and this scenario unfortunately is a reality where you have about 100, like it's not even 100 to 1. I'm not entirely sure what the number is, but definitely the top 1 performers are probably getting a vast amount of the income. So this is a space in terms of radio that is monopolized by larger major record companies that are putting loads of investment in there. So this is like winning a lottery ticket. But thankfully, and thanks to the constant demand of and the stream of productions that have been happening, thanks to Netflix, thanks to Amazon Prime, Hulu, Movie, all of these productions that are happening, there has been an increase of the demand of music that can be synced and used in media. Music for media will benefit you on the performance end of things and on the mechanical end of things, depending on how you negotiate your contracts. You have different types. You have tailor-made content, which is soundtracks and jingles. Let's say this could be the introduction to the James Bond movie that has been commissioned with Jack White or Adele or Sam Smith. And usually, to get this, you are approached by a company or a client that is interested in you developing this music. You have synchronizations, which usually arise from a production company being interested in either a specific style of music or a popular song that's on demand that would definitely help their production or their product, their movie, the series, whatever, get to the next level. And they are usually people that are interested in very specific music that will have a very decent budget to get the license to get this music on board and synchronize them with their image. There are ways in which maybe sync deals and licensing and custom music kind of like intertwine, but possibilities are endless. So I'm going to focus now on the third one, which is library music. As opposed to the ones I just mentioned, library music is music that has most often been nurtured to be extremely friendly for media. And in that spirit, it takes care of all of the steps involved in the process, making sure that whenever the music is needed, it has been cleared legally, that it's available, that it has stems, that maybe there's versions, and that it has already been edited. It has been thought as the ultimate friend for a audiovisual editor that needs music on the go. So library music needs to be pre-recorded. It's not commissioned. It's just put in there to make sure that whenever someone needs it, it's readily available and it's good to go. And lastly, in this second part, the track and claim. So as with the previous examples, but notably in this one, tracking your music takes an extreme amount of resources. In the world of West One, we have a whole department, and as said by one of the founders, Tony Pryor, the key to a successful music business career is to make sure that whenever you get played, you get paid. How to track your music? Well, there are services out there that work like Shazam, that is running servers on all the channels. In the case of they have specific territories. So in the case of Europe, you have TuneSat, that's TUNESAT. I don't know why I'm spelling. I could just like put the name here somewhere in the box again. And one that is a bit more strong in Latin America would be Latin America and North America would be BMAT. Between BMAT and TuneSat, they simply run a recognition system when you upload your music to them. I think the services have a cost. We have used both within West One Music Group, and it works a little bit like Shazam, where they are all day long listening to channels, and whenever music that you have put with them sounds, they take a snippet of that audio, put them there, and then you know that for that you would have to pay, you have to be paid a performance royalty and a mechanical royalty depending on what deal you have in place. I recommend that you find a partner to do this, because it will take a lot of time and it will take a lot of money. And the ironic thing about it is, the more successful you are, the more time it will actually take for you to print these reports, report them, or cross-reference to make sure that everything that you have, that everything that has gone on air has been mechanically paid for, and that when you have the stream of royalties from your performance royalty collection society are also accounted for. So by the time you start getting a good amount of royalties, it would be ideal to have a partnership with a company, with a publisher that will help you do that. They are way more efficient, they have experts at this, and they have solid relationships and the means to represent your catalog to make sure that whenever something gets played, you are recognized financially for that. Not to mention that all of the time that you're gonna spend tracking royalties is time that you're not gonna spend creating music. I believe there are services within digital distribution, music publishers that take care of this, but bear in mind that as with your audiences and as with your registrations, the more informed you are and the more that you are willing to take the horse by the reins, the more likely you will be able to support and keep your distributor, publisher, or label in check. Most of the times we aim to do a really good job, but it is a massive world out there. If on top of their network, in the top of the net that you have, you also are helping to keep an eye out for any sort of irregularities, then that's better, and I'm sure that any company would appreciate that too. Small parenthesis, for live performed music, here in my notes, make sure that you always report the repertoire that you're playing in venues where PRS is being paid. That money is for you. Either come ready to the venue with a printed form. If it's a bigger festival, make sure that you don't miss out, although they do a great job and they very likely come directly to you to make sure that you report what music you will be playing. Or after a gig, keep track of what you've just done, go online, fill in a form, and make sure that is reported. Now that there's the possibility of doing performances to smaller audiences, make sure that you don't miss the opportunity to claim performances for your live gigs. And sadly, we get to the last part. How can I get my music then to the right places? How can I get right partnerships? A big part of my takeaways has been that you can absolutely take full control and become your own record label and music publisher, but it is costly. The resources in terms of time, knowledge, education, money that you have to put towards being as effective as a whole department of a music publisher, like getting to that efficiency would be committing to claiming royalties and never creating music again. So it all sounds great if I say, great, find a partnership, get a record label, they're gonna sort out everything for you. And it's like, yeah, but Felipe, how will I find that? So in this section, I'm gonna give you a few tips on how, from the creation of the music to the packaging and the distribution, how you keep your own artistic persona in place, can become more attractive for record labels or for syncing agencies, and make sure that when that happens, you are ready to take the opportunity. The first one, and if there is one single insight that you're going to take from all of this, is to please stay true to yourself. As an artist, any potential opportunity, any new fan that you can find, any press release, any interview will see through if you're not being honest. There is an ocean of music out there, and if you are pretending to be or doing music or something that you're not, it is very likely that someone else that in that style or in that authenticity beats you, and it will outshine you. So when it comes to being you, no one is better. So do stay true to yourself. So what if your music is not profitable right now? That's a great realization to have. Do not be afraid of exploring opportunities beyond artist music. Collaborate and build a music portfolio of high quality music that you can offer for alternative means of income. If you want to live from music, you need to understand that. And if you're releasing one album a year, you cannot, or it's unlikely that you will reach a level of income that will allow you to just live from making music. So cultivate yourself as an artist, but also explore possibilities to collaborate and make music for other media. Think of it as being the owner of a coffee shop. You don't have to just sell black coffee. You would have a latte, you would have cappuccino, you would have mocha, you would have brownies, and you would have pastries. If your coffee isn't selling today, you need to have options. Diversify your music portfolio to make sure that your music business, which is you, is constantly generating income. And with that portfolio, be extremely tidy. Publishers dread finding a great artist or a composer that hasn't got their act together. That goes back to my point about ensuring that the creation of your music is fully documented and covered all the way through. Deals have fallen through because key collaborators couldn't be found, couldn't be traced, or actually even refused to sign a consent form. And be on top of your socials. In music, for media, it might not be as big, but in the world of commercial music, in the world that we live in, the amount of people and the amount of engagements and the amount of posts and the quality of your posts and the quality of your interactions is extremely important. I don't particularly look at the numbers. I listen to the music, but it is no mystery that social media numbers are used as a key performance indicator of your development as an artist. And I know that for marketing teams and even for me, even though I don't look at that whenever I'm telling the story of an artist and whenever you're trying to sell that to a client, the numbers of social media do come across as a potential opportunity of someone to also benefit from the audience that that artist already has. I think we have run out of time. Thank you so much for listening to the whole thing. I hope that my tone of voice is not boring. I hope that I don't move my hands in a very confusing way all the time. I do that. I wish that we could have addressed problems one by one. I think it's such a broad topic that it's impossible to cover accurately. So do stay in touch. Instagram, LinkedIn, somewhere in here I'm gonna drop them, and I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see what specific needs and complications you see, and I always enjoy a challenge in coming up with solutions. If you ever want to improve the quality of your productions, if you want to find potential opportunities for your music, I'm always up for listening to that and giving you purposeful one-on-one solutions. There is a mentorship session as well somewhere. I don't know if you have to register previously to this, but if there's still time, go in there, register. I don't know how much time we're gonna have, but I'll be happy to meet you, but if not, just the socials will do. Thank you so much again for listening to this. These are very complicated times, and I hope that as an industry we find in spaces like the LoLa MC many opportunities to stay connected and support each other.